Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Conversation Academy. I'm your host, Vantiven, and I'm so glad you could join us today for another fantastic session of English practice. We've got a really interesting topic lined up for you, and I'm not alone today. I have a wonderful co-host with me.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Vantiven. My name is Alex, and I'm really excited to be here at English Conversation Academy. It's great to be able to help our viewers practice their English conversation skills. I'm looking forward to our chat today.
It's a pleasure to have you, Alex. We're thrilled to have your insights and your conversational style with us. So, for all our viewers out there, get ready to engage, listen, and learn. Today, we're diving into a topic that many of you have asked for, talking about your personal life in English. It's a great way to get to know people better, but it can sometimes feel a little intimidating to talk about yourself in a new language. Don't you agree, Alex?
Absolutely, Vantiven. It's one of those essential skills, isn't it? Whether you're making new friends, meeting colleagues, or just having a casual chat, being able to comfortably share a bit about yourself is key to building connections. And it's not just about listing facts. It's about expressing who you are, your feelings, your experiences. It can be a bit of an art form.
It really is, and we want to make it as natural and comfortable as possible for everyone. So, Alex, to kick things off, let's start with some general questions that often come up when you're just getting to know someone. For instance, how would you usually respond if someone asked you, "What do you do?" as in, for work?
That's a classic, isn't it? I usually start with my profession and then maybe add a little context. So I might say I work as a content creator for educational platforms, primarily focusing on language learning materials. Then, if they seem interested, I might elaborate. I really enjoy it because I get to combine my passion for teaching with my love for creative expression. How about you, Vantiven? What's your go-to answer for that question?
Good question. I often say, I'm a host and producer for online educational content, specifically for channels like English Conversation Academy. And sometimes I'll add, it's incredibly rewarding to help people improve their English and connect with a global audience. It's interesting how you can tailor the answer depending on who you're talking to and how much detail you want to share.
Exactly. It's all about gauging the situation. You wouldn't give a super detailed breakdown of your entire job description to someone you just met at a coffee shop, but you might with a potential collaborator. Speaking of which, how do you usually spend your free time, Vantiven? What are some of your favorite hobbies or activities outside of work?
Oh, that's a fun one. My free time. Well, I love to read, especially historical fiction and biographies. I find it fascinating to learn about different eras and people's lives. I also enjoy hiking. There's something incredibly refreshing about being out in nature, getting away from screens and just enjoying the fresh air. And on a more creative note, I've recently started dabbling in photography. Nothing professional, just capturing moments and landscapes. What about you, Alex? Any interesting hobbies keeping you busy?
That sounds wonderful, Vantiven. I can totally relate to the hiking. Now, there's nothing quite like it to clear your head. For me, I'm a big fan of cooking. I love experimenting with new recipes, especially international cuisine. There's something so satisfying about creating a delicious meal from scratch. And then, probably my biggest passion outside of work is playing the guitar. I've been playing for quite a few years now, mostly acoustic folk and some blues. It's a great way to unwind and express myself.
Wow, cooking and guitar. That's a fantastic combination. Do you ever combine them, like play guitar while waiting for something to simmer?
Haha, not quite. Though that's an interesting image. My kitchen isn't really set up for a jam session, unfortunately. But I do often listen to music while I cook. It sets a nice atmosphere. So, you mentioned historical fiction. Are there any particular periods or figures that you find most captivating?
That's a great follow-up question. I'm really drawn to the early 20th century, particularly the interwar period and World War II. It was such a transformative time, full of immense challenges and incredible human resilience. I've read a lot about figures like Winston Churchill and Eleanor Roosevelt. Their leadership and determination during those tumultuous times are really inspiring. Do you have any favorite types of music you like to play on your guitar?
Oh, absolutely. I lean heavily towards fingerstyle guitar, so I love artists like John Fahey or Bert Jansch. Their music is incredibly intricate and beautiful, but I can also enjoy classic rock and blues, so I'll often play covers of Eric Clapton or Bob Dylan. It really depends on my mood. It's funny how hobbies can tell so much about a person, isn't it? They often reflect our personality or what we value.
They really do. It's a window into what brings us joy and relaxation. On a slightly different note, when people ask about your personal life, they sometimes inquire about family. How do you usually approach that, Alex? Do you share much about your family or do you keep it more private?
That's a good point, Vantivan. It really depends on the context and the person I'm talking to. If it's a casual conversation with someone I'm just getting to know, I might say something brief like, I have two siblings, an older sister and a younger brother, and my parents are retired. That usually suffices. If it's someone I'm closer to, or if they share more about their family first, I might go into a little more detail, perhaps mentioning what my siblings do or a funny family anecdote. I think it's important to respect personal boundaries, both yours and theirs. What's your approach to talking about family?
I completely agree about respecting boundaries. I usually keep it fairly concise initially. I might say, I come from a relatively small family. I have one sister and we're quite close. If the conversation flows naturally and there's genuine interest, I'll share more. For example, I might mention that my sister lives abroad, which often sparks questions about travel or different cultures. It's a good way to keep the conversation going without oversharing immediately.
That's a smart way to do it. It offers a natural segue into other topics. So, thinking about daily routines, which is also part of personal life, how would you describe a typical weekday for you, Vantivan? Do you have a strict schedule or are you more flexible?
I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I like to have a general framework for my day, but I also appreciate flexibility. A typical weekday for me starts relatively early. I'm usually up by 6:30 a.m. I like to start my day with a cup of coffee and some quiet time, maybe reading the news or a chapter from a book. Then I move into work mode, which involves planning, recording, and editing for the channel. Lunch is usually a quick affair. My afternoons are a mix of meetings, content creation, and administrative tasks. I try to wrap up work by 6 p.m., and then it's time for dinner and some relaxation. Sometimes a walk, sometimes an evening with my photography, or just catching up on a show. What about you, Alex? What does a typical day look like for you?
That sounds like a very productive day, Vantivan. I'm a bit similar with the framework, but with a good amount of flexibility built in. I'm also an early riser, usually around 6 a.m. I like to get a workout in first thing, either a run or some strength training. It really helps me feel energized for the day. Then it's coffee, breakfast, and checking emails. My work as a content creator means my schedule can vary quite a lot. Some days I'm writing scripts, other days I'm recording audio, or I might be researching new topics. I usually aim for a few solid blocks of focused work. In the evenings, it's often cooking, playing guitar, or sometimes catching up with friends. I try to make sure I have some downtime to recharge.
It's great that you prioritize your workout in the mornings. I know many people struggle with that. It sounds like you have a good balance between work and personal time. Do you ever feel like you need to explain your creative process when people ask about your work? For example, if someone asks, how do you come up with ideas for your content?
That's a really insightful question. Sometimes I do, especially if the person isn't familiar with creative work. I might explain that it's a mix of intentional brainstorming, keeping an eye on current trends, listening to audience feedback, and also just letting ideas percolate in the background. It's not always a linear process, and sometimes the best ideas come when you're not actively trying. I think it helps people understand that creative work isn't just about sitting down and poof, an idea appears. What about you, Vantivan? do you find yourself explaining the process of creating a YouTube video?
Definitely. I often find myself explaining that it's not just about sitting in front of a camera and talking. There's a lot of research, script outlining, equipment setup, lighting, audio checks, and then the whole editing process afterward. People often don't realize how much goes into a well-produced video. It's a lot of different hats to wear. Speaking of which, have you had any particularly memorable experiences lately, either related to work or your personal life, that you'd be comfortable sharing?
A memorable experience. Let me think. Oh, actually, I recently took a short trip to a small coastal town I'd never visited before. It wasn't anything grand or exotic, but it was just so incredibly peaceful and charming. I spent my days walking along the beach, trying local seafood, and just enjoying the slower pace of life. It really made me appreciate the simple beauty of a quiet getaway. It was a lovely reset. How about you, Vantaven? Any recent experiences that stand out for you?
That sounds absolutely delightful, Alex. A peaceful coastal town sounds like a perfect escape. For me, a recent memorable experience was actually a small, impromptu gathering with some old university friends. We hadn't all been in the same room for years, and it was just wonderful to reconnect, share stories, and laugh about old times. It reminded me how important it is to nurture those long-standing friendships, even when life gets busy. It was a really heartwarming evening.
Oh, those kinds of reunions are the best, aren't they? There's a unique comfort in reconnecting with people who've known you for a long time. It really puts things into perspective. It brings us to the point of sharing opinions and reactions. When you're talking about personal experiences, how do you usually express your feelings about them? For example, if you were talking about that reunion, how would you convey your joy and warmth?
That's a great point. I would probably use words like, "It was truly heartwarming," "I felt so grateful," or "It brought back so many wonderful memories." And I'd probably use expressive language, maybe a slightly softer tone in my voice, and a genuine smile to show my emotions. Sometimes adding a small detail like "we were laughing until our sides hurt" can really paint a picture of the feeling. How about you, Alex? How do you express your feelings about an experience, like that peaceful coastal trip you mentioned?
I'd probably use similar descriptive language. For the coastal trip, I might say, "It was incredibly serene and restorative," or "I felt completely relaxed and recharged." I'd also probably emphasize how much I needed that break to give context to why it felt so good. Using adverbs and adjectives that convey emotion, like utterly, deeply, incredibly, or absolutely, can really amplify what you're trying to say. And of course, genuine enthusiasm in my voice and facial expressions would go a long way.
That's excellent advice for our viewers. Using those stronger adverbs and adjectives really helps to convey the depth of feeling. It's also about being authentic, isn't it? When you're talking about your personal life, people appreciate honesty and genuine emotion. Sometimes, though, we might encounter situations where someone asks something a bit too personal, or perhaps something you're not comfortable discussing. How do you navigate that, Alex?
That's a tricky one, but it definitely happens. My go-to strategy is usually to politely redirect the conversation, or give a very general, brief answer without going into detail. For example, if someone asks something I don't want to discuss, I might say, "That's a bit personal, but I'm happy to tell you about a related but less sensitive topic." Or, "I prefer to keep that private, but I appreciate you asking." It's about being firm but polite. You don't want to be rude, but you also need to protect your boundaries. How do you handle those situations, Vantaven?
I completely agree. Politeness and redirection are key. I might also use a phrase like, "I'm not comfortable discussing that right now," or "I'd rather not get into the specifics of that." Sometimes a simple, "Oh, that's a long story for another time," with a friendly smile can also work to gently deflect without causing offense. It's a skill that definitely improves with practice, just like any other aspect of conversation. What would you say is the biggest challenge for English learners when it comes to talking about their personal life?
I think one of the biggest challenges is probably finding the right vocabulary and expressions to convey nuances of emotion or specific experiences. It's one thing to say, I'm happy, but it's another to explain why you're happy or the kind of happiness you're feeling. Also, cultural differences can play a big role. What's considered appropriate to share in one culture might be too personal in another. So, understanding those unspoken rules is also a hurdle. What do you think, Vantivan?
I totally agree with both of those points, especially the cultural aspect. That's a huge one. I'd also add confidence. It takes a certain level of confidence to open up in your native language, let alone in a second language where you might be worried about making mistakes or not expressing yourself perfectly. Overcoming that self-consciousness is a big step. It's about embracing the journey and understanding that mistakes are part of learning. We're all learning, even native speakers.
Absolutely, and that's why practice is so vital. Just getting those words out, even if they're not perfect, is what builds fluency and confidence. Let's shift gears a little and talk about future plans or aspirations, as that often comes up in conversations about personal life. Do you have any particular personal goals or aspirations for the near future, Vantiven, that you're comfortable sharing?
That's a great question, Alex. For the near future, one of my personal goals is to complete a local marathon. I've been training for it for a while now, and it's a huge challenge, but I'm really looking forward to the sense of accomplishment. Beyond that, I'd love to dedicate more time to my photography, perhaps even take a workshop to refine my skills. It's something I genuinely enjoy, and I want to explore it further. What about you? Any personal aspirations or exciting plans on the horizon?
Wow, a marathon! That's incredibly impressive, Vantivan. Best of luck with that. I admire your dedication. My personal aspirations are a bit less physically demanding, perhaps. I'm hoping to release an EP of my own original music this year. It's a long-term project I've been working on, and it would be really fulfilling to finally put my own music out there. And related to that, I'd love to collaborate with other musicians more. That's a big goal for me.
That's fantastic, Alex. An EP of your own music sounds incredibly exciting. I'd love to hear it when it's ready. It takes a lot of courage to share your creative work with the world. I'm sure our viewers would be interested in that too. So, speaking of encouragement, what advice would you give to someone who feels shy or hesitant about sharing details of their personal life in English?
That's a really important question, Vantivan. My advice would be to start small. Don't feel pressured to share your deepest secrets right away. Begin by talking about your hobbies, your favorite foods, or a recent positive experience. Practice with trusted friends or in a safe learning environment, like our comment section here. And remember that everyone feels a little shy sometimes, even native speakers. Focus on connecting, not on perfection. What's your top piece of advice for our learners, Vantivan?
My top piece of advice would be to listen actively. When someone asks you about your personal life, they're often opening up a little themselves. Pay attention to what they share, and you'll find natural cues for how much you might want to share in return. Also, don't be afraid to ask follow-up questions. It shows interest and keeps the conversation flowing. For example, if someone says they love to travel, you could ask, "Oh, really? Where's the most interesting place you've ever been?" That shows engagement and invites them to share more, which then creates a more balanced conversation. And as Alex said, start small and build up your confidence.
Excellent points, Vantivan. Active listening and asking follow-up questions are crucial for any good conversation, especially when you're delving into personal topics. It makes the other person feel heard and valued. It's not just about what you say, but also how you engage with what they say.
Exactly. So, we've talked about hobbies, daily routines, family, future aspirations, and even handling sensitive questions. I think we've covered a good range of topics that fall under talking about your personal life. It's all about building rapport and making connections, isn't it?
It really is, and it's a skill that transcends language. Being able to connect with people on a personal level is so enriching. For our viewers, remember that this isn't about memorizing scripts. It's about understanding the types of questions you might encounter, thinking about how you would genuinely answer them, and then practicing expressing those answers in English.
Precisely. And remember, it's okay to pause and think. It's okay to ask for clarification if you don't understand a question. That's all part of a natural conversation. We want you all to feel empowered to share your unique stories and experiences.
And don't forget to incorporate some of those light emotional expressions we talked about. A genuine laugh, a thoughtful or a surprised, oh really, can add so much to the natural flow of your conversation.
Great reminder, Alex. Those nonverbal cues and brief interjections are so important for sounding natural. So, before we wrap up, Alex, is there any final thought or piece of encouragement you'd like to share with our viewers regarding this topic?
I'd just like to say, don't be afraid to be yourself. Your personal story is unique and interesting. Embrace the opportunity to share it in English. Every conversation is a learning opportunity, and the more you practice talking about your life, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. You've got this.
Wonderful advice, Alex, and I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your insights and experiences. It's been a truly engaging conversation.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Vantaven. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our chat and hope our viewers found it helpful.
I'm sure they did. And to all our amazing viewers at English Conversation Academy, thank you for tuning in. We hope this video has given you some valuable tools and confidence for talking about your personal life in English. Keep practicing, keep engaging, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. Keep practicing.
Bye for now.